Works, and I mentioned earlier on my request for DPWH to, through LUA, to help with the NHA so that their housing projects for AFP, PNP, and the resettlement sites for the victims of Sendong, Pablo, and Yolanda have access to water. But I'm not sure if it would entail budgetary allocation in the water districts. So I would request for a report from LUA, depending on their talk, which they did earlier with DPW, with NHA, what's the budgetary implication of providing water system in all these areas. Then let's proceed now with your budget.
Okay.
Before the senators come, maraming tanong ulit.
Okay. Yes. So this is.
But did MVUC arrive?
Yes. Director Clabanos, sitting there. Yes.
Did you seek clarification for that memo? That they're no longer under you?
Yes, it was received by our legislative liaison office, and they were still waiting for the details of this before they would, because they were just waiting for the attachments or whatever supporting documents are needed, of course, because it's a major
of course.
change.
Well, I'd like to hear from the road board. What is that all about? While we were conducting our hearing, a letter from you to the DLLO is amending a law. That's our understanding. What is that letter? Are you authorized to write that letter to the DLLO? And does it mean that you are no longer under the DPWH, but under the Office of the President? Can you please show us the executive order?
Good afternoon, Madam. This was an inquiry from the last administration. They were inquiring the Department of Justice for an opinion. And at that time, Secretary De Lima wasn't really able to come up with a opinion. So under this administration, we got the opinion from we were informed by the Department of Justice. They came out with the legal opinion that we should be under the Office of the President. So on that basis, when I got that notice, I informed the departments who are members of the board, so that they'll be informed. That it emanated from the previous administration.
Thank you. I just saw a one-page letter. Maybe the attachment of a DOJ opinion should have been included for clarification. And until such time, I just wish that you will settle it among yourselves, but as far as I'm concerned, you're still under DPWH, because there is a move by both houses to abolish the road board, since it was created by law. And I just came from an informal caucus on the lounge that indeed the road board will be abolished. In the meantime that you are alive, could you please submit to the committee, even if there's no budgetary allocation from the GAA, how much funds you have, how much is allocated to the DOTR and other agencies, and do senators and congressmen and local officials ask you to include their projects? You could answer it now if you have the information. Is there any senator or congressman that gives you listings for MVUC?
We normally receive some program of work coming from the district engineers. And what we do is that when we get this program of work, we send it to the Department of Public Works for them to evaluate and see if it's not in conflict with the GAA or the road condition, if it's really bad condition. And so after that, after evaluating, if it's cleared with them, they send it back to us for funding. So,
sige po, just please submit to us your funds, where is it lodged. All I know is DOTR has 8 billion, it's not using it. And you don't want to tell us who has given you listings, if any, maybe none. So we'll take it at that. But my colleagues are coming to ask more questions. In the meantime, I'll proceed with the budget of DPWH. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And we'd like to start with this presentation on our budget proposal for 2018. The program of the President is the Build, Build, Build program, and it is a program wherein we'll be allocating, we're planning on spending between 8 and 9 trillion pesos during the course of the term of our President. By far the most ambitious infrastructure program in the history of our country. Last year we had allocated 5.4%, the equivalent of 5.4% of our GDP in infrastructure, and for 2018 we're going to ramp it up to, we're projecting to ramp it up to 6.3% of our GDP, with the ultimate goal by the end of the term of the President should reach about 7.3%, which we feel is in line with the sort of spending that other countries are doing, countries such as China, India routinely spend between 8 to 10% of their GDP in infrastructure. So we feel this is a very aggressive, and it's a much needed program so that we can plug the infrastructure gap that has been plaguing us for so long. So there are strategic objectives. Of course, we know the DPWH mandate. This slide is basically our road network. It's a summary of our road network and how much has been paved. As you can see, a majority of our national roads have already been paved. It is a moving target. Primary roads, which connect cities, 99.98%, almost all. Secondary roads, 92.51%. Tertiary roads, 85.3%.
Secretary Mark, before you proceed, you mentioned about the 8 trillion that will be generated if the train is passed into law. Just in case we don't pass it by December, what's the impact on your infrastructure budget?
Well, I don't want to pre-up the DOF because it's not really under our scope to. But from what I know from our many events with them, is that what's important for them is the ratio of debt to GDP, which at this point is at 40%. So as long as the GDP speeds up or increases at a higher rate than our debt, we'll still be in good shape. In fact, the target of Secretary Jokno is that by the end of this term, we will have our debt to GDP ratio will be 38%, which is lower still than with the debt. So it'll actually improve over the next 6 years, because if we're expecting, the reason why we're doing this is we're expecting 7%, we're expecting to hit 7% GDP growth. And one of the primary, the fuel for this growth one of the major factors in this growth will be the infrastructure spending of the government. So I think when it comes to fiscal policy, the DOF has said that there's a need. Definitely, I think there is a need. But in terms of, I think, our fiscal position of this government at this point is especially relative to other countries, very healthy. 40% is one of the lowest in Asia, one of the lowest in the world. So I think this program, given the fact that interest rates are low, there's a lot of liquidity in the market. This program is something that I think that it has the timing is correct in terms of implementing this. Certainly, the tax, and there's certain taxes. I just like to say, for instance, for the taxes, most of these are we're spending about 160 billion in decongestion programs, and I think there's going to be a tax on motor vehicles. I think there'll be a tax on. There's even a tax on fuel. I guess it would be logical that maybe the people who use these roads would bear the brunt, so I suppose, of the tax. So I think I think it's a reasonable. The DOF has really made an effort to make this as fair, as socially fair as possible. But again, it's not really my main line. The fiscal policy is not really my main line. on our part, we just want to implement these projects and make sure that the pipeline is ready for this program for President.
We recognize Senator J.V. Ejercito. My question was, of the 8 trillion that will be generated within 5 years, if we are to pass the measure, how much of that would go to infrastructure of the Public Works Department?
Well, it's hard to say. It all goes to one common fund, so it doesn't. We never really allocate a certain amount that this part will go to DPWH.
That has not been discussed between the economic team
not
and the infra team, between DOTR and yourself, because we would imagine of the 8 trillion that will be generated, most of that will come from domestic and foreign borrowings, and just a portion will be from the additional taxes. In fact, 135 billion in 2018. Even if you make it 135 progressing times 5 years, it would not reach 8 trillion. Much of that would come from domestic and foreign borrowings. But I wanted to have an idea how much of the 8 trillion that will be generated will be earmarked for public works spending and transport spending. Do you have such a
yes, of the 8 trillion, the DOTR has about, wait, what is the DOTR out of the 8 trillion? Because, like, for instance, out of the total, what's DOTR, what's ours?
Out of the total of 8 trillion, which will go to public works spending?
Yes.
And what percentage for transport and communication spending? If you have that already.
Yes, just one. No, diba tayo 650 billion, but the infra is 1 trillion. So for the total 8 trillion, what is DOTR and what is that? Could you just 1 minute. I apologize. I'm not sure about the DOTR. But what's our portion for the next 6 years? Sa atin lang.
Out of 8 trillion?
Yeah. Ano tayo?
Sir, kung more than 50% goes to the commission money implemented.
Hindi dito tayo, 650. Hindi, saan ba tayo? What's our spending over the next 6 years? Here.
Hindi, sir, yung mula sa 2018 hanggang 2020.
What is our spending going to be? The exact amount.
So kung 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 trillion. More than siguro.
We recognize Senator Ping Lacson.
1.5 trillion.
More than half.
More than half. Nandun siya yung budget.
Ipa-compute mo na lang.
We
just 1 minute for the computation.
Sure. We just want to have an idea. We're being asked to pass the measure.
Yes.
We are committed to do something about it. We just want to know how much of it will go to public works.
Yes.
And what are these major ticket items in public works that will be funded within the next 5 years? I will ask DOTR the same thing.
Yes.
And that would give us a better reason to pass or not to pass, whether it's really needed.
Yeah. I think more or less, we're about 50% of the budget for the allocated budget for the complete infrastructure. So we're looking at 4 trillion for the DPWH.
Trillion.
Projected. This is a projected amount.
Sure.
So
4 trillion within 5 years. How will we be able to spend? So more or less almost 1 trillion a year.
Yes.
Can you give us big ticket items for 4 trillion worth of projects that will be funded by the train that are not funded under the present GAA? If you have it.
Yes. We can present, actually, along with our major infrastructure programs, we've shown some of the highlights that will be funded. In fact, we have a breakdown, well, mostly of 2018, but more or less, I think that a lot of the projects that we mentioned here are projects that will be, will take maybe 3 or 4 years to finish. So most of them, these are the projects that will be included in this major infrastructure program. So,
projects that you will present to us now
yes,
are already the projects that will be funded by the tax reform
yes,
measure.
yes. The highlights. Sa dami pa ng projects, we can submit all of them, but we
we'll
submitted
watch
all
your
the highlights.
presentation first.
Sige po.
I'm just concerned because I have a copy of your obligation, and in 2016, you reverted 39.5, almost 40 billion unappropriated surplus and 144.5 billion unobligated appropriations. So if we are to, and Mark, this is nothing personal, I said this to DepEd, I said this to DOTR and all other agencies. We are being asked to pass new tax measures to generate 8 trillion. Half of that will go to public works for 1 trillion a year, more or less. But the DPWH returned almost 40 billion in 2016 and has 144.5 billion of unobligated and unreleased appropriations last year. Not your fault. You took over last quarter of the year, last semester. But for this year, you also have 217 unobligated as of June 30. So my question is, how much really can you not just obligate but disperse and actually utilize under the present budget? So perhaps you can first answer what projects suffered, were not built, with a return of almost 40 billion in December of 2016.
Yes.
And then my second question would be, as of June 30, there's 217.2 unobligated yet that you need to spend till December. Will you be able to obligate that? We're even just talking obligation,
Yes.
not even disbursement. But if you're not able to do that, I would encourage you, just like DepEd, NDA, NDOTR, and all other agencies that we face, to do internal housekeeping and tell us we can only take this much. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
But before you answer, we recognize the Majority Leader, Senator Soto, Senator Subiri again, and Senator Joel Villanueva. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Secretary Mark.
You're correct that absorptive capacity is an issue, and even within the department, admittedly, it's a strong concern given the large budget. In 2016, we were able to obligate 79% of the budget. We were able to obligate 429 out of 544 billion. Our disbursement rate for that year was 61%, and for this, I'm talking to 2016, our absorptive capacity was about 79%, and our disbursement rate was about 61%. That was for 2016. At this point as of September 15, this year, our absorptive capacity is about 70%, and our disbursement is at, what is it at this point? Disbursement. 40%. 40%, which is given a higher budget also. Our ultimate, our target at this point, is we're hoping to hit about 85 to 90% obligated, while hitting about about 70% in disbursement. So that is our target for this year. It's very difficult to reach 100% disbursement also, because keeping in mind we have other factors such as savings, and there's really projects that don't get finished in 1 year. Disbursements are a function of the construction, and given, especially in big term projects, we can obligate but not necessarily finish all the projects in 1 year. So we want to obligate at least 90% this year, which is a significant improvement, and continue improving this as we, for instance, with the DepEd, we hope to improve our communication with them so as to also improve our absorptive capacity. So, I mean, to cut a long story short, Senator, yes, these are our targets for 2018. We want significant improvement, but these are realistic targets. I'm not saying we're going to hit 100% disbursement, and maybe not. We're not going to hit 100% absorptive.
Obligation target then for 2018 is 90%.
About 90%, yes.
And what is your obligation target to be able to utilize the unobligated as of June 30, hindi updated to 217.
Well, we feel that most of these projects are already in advanced stages of procurement, so the awardings continue. So they're in terms of obligation, the momentum is already there because all the plans have been finished. So we feel that we can obligate at a faster rate during the second half of the year, and that's what's happening. With regards to disbursement, again, as the project matures, the disbursement rate also picks up. But like I said, a lot of projects don't get finished in a year. And at the same time, we also have savings from the biddings that are included in the savings that we usually return. But they don't always, they're not always issued a negative salary immediately, so they don't always reflect. So they're just basically they're in the central, and then we've already requested to take it back. But the process of issuing the negative salary is not that quickly. So it's not that quick. So in the meantime, it's still there. So.
We take note of that, and I just hope that just like the other agencies, we'll be able to see a higher level of expenditure and obligation, not just obligation but disbursement for this year and the next year. Okay, then you can proceed. But before that, the DAR, I didn't realize, is here. We were supposed to have the DAR as well. Your budget is deemed submitted. Senator Subcommittee already approved your budget, but remember, there were certain requests of Senator Villar during last week's hearing, and you were supposed to recast your budget to do it in favor of equipment and to lessen the training and travel and capacity building, etc. Where is DAR? Am I addressing DAR?
Yes, ma'am.
They're here. Oo. Ayun pala. Hindi na po kayo kailangan umupo. Okay na po. I didn't know you've been here the whole day? Just today. Sige po, deemed submitted na kayo. But then yung ating mga pinag-usapan na i-recast nyo yung budget, etc.
Yes, Madam
Natutuloy na rin yung bukid
Chairman, yes, we had a fantastic meeting this afternoon, and many issues were resolved. So we thank the Secretary Bisnoyong, for her time, and I'd like to make also a second to the motion of the Chairman to move your budget already to plenary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Madam Chair, we already have submitted all the required reports and description of the recasted budget.
Madam Chair, Madam Chairman, Madam Chairperson.
Wala pa raw sa LBRMO kanina. Just find out kung kanina yung Senator.
May we know from the DAR people who's in charge of DAR now?
She's the OIC.
Sino? Kayo po ang OIC.
I have just been designated, Your Honor, as the OIC Secretary.
When?
Friday of last week.
Last week. Ano pangalan niyo, ma'am?
Rosalina Bistoyong. I used to be the Undersecretary for Support
Career po
Services.
kayo dyan.
I'm a career
Thank you.
official. In fact, I'm the president of all the career officials in the country.
Sabi ni Senator Migs, magaling daw kayo. Mabait, magaling, maamo. Kaya sabi niya, ipasa ka agad. Ayan ah. Ayan. Pinag-alpay pero pinuli. Okay, thank you. Dapat siya na nilagay na Secretary Mort, please proceed.
Yeah, so the next slide is the current condition. I was mentioning about our road network in the Philippines. As you can see, the national road network is almost completely paved. We're still, of course, these missing gaps are the priority in our budget, so we're continuously plugging these gaps until we reach 100%. But more or less, you can see the primary road network has been completed. That is basically, we have 32,770 kilometers, and at this point, 30,010 kilometers have been paved. And that's why a lot of the allocation of the DPWH now, you can see a increasing focus on other widenings, new road openings, bypasses, convergence programs, because the paving portion of the mandate of the DPWH has been significantly addressed. So, if we look at the budget, the increase over from 2011 to 2018, we can see there's a significant increase from a 38% increase from 2017 to 2018. In 2017, we allocated 467.66 billion, and in 2018, we will be allocating 643.25 billion pesos for the DPWH budget. As you can see, it's from 2011, it was 110 billion pesos at this stage. Consistent with the program of our president for infrastructure focus, we're spending 643.25 in the DPWH. This is the breakdown of our budget summary. As you can see, most of the budget is for capital outlay. Of course, this department, clearly the focus, unlike other departments, not the administrative, it's really the capital outlay composes a large portion of our budget. So you can see here how much. 605 billion is the capital outlay. In support of that, we have current operating expenditures of 24.68 billion. And we have other funds, the MBUC, which is 12 billion. And the RLIP, which is 0.72.
Retirement and life insurance.
Yeah, which is the retirement and life insurance. Now going to the major strategic infrastructure policies. We've broken down the budget into various programs, so we can see more clearly where the focus of the department is. To start with, in the traffic decongestion program, this is the implementation of high standard highways, expressways, construction of national roads, bridges, bypasses, diversion roads, flyovers, interchanges, and underpasses. We know that, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the numbers, 2.4 billion pesos being lost per day in traffic, and that's the motivation behind this budget for traffic decongestion. The economic losses are very high, and though not measurable, the losses in terms of quality of life, also pollution, family time, those are losses that we cannot quantify, but we feel are maybe even higher than that 2.4 billion a day. So for 2017, we had allocated 113.1, and in 2018 we have increased to 160.8 billion for the traffic decongestion program. Later we'll be highlighting some of the major programs that compose this traffic decongestion program. This is all across the country. This is not just Metro Manila, but we have major game-changing projects in every region in our country. So we have next the integrated and seamless transport system. This includes master plans such as the Mindanao Logistics Network, and just recently the upgrading of the Mindanao Road Network, which is geared towards the Zamboanga Peninsula. This includes our program for inter-island bridges and construction replacement of existing bridges. This is the budget we've allocated from 88 billion last year to 96.3 billion for 2018 for the integrated seamless transport system. And our next program is the Convergence and Rural Road Development Program. Since we've already significantly completed the National Road Program, we have created convergence programs with the various departments, such as the Department of Tourism, Department of Trade and Industry, and Department of Transportation. The DOT program is called TRIP, the DTI we call it Roll It, and the DOTR Convergence, well, that is the name. These programs are done with cooperation of the various departments. They are the ones who identify priority local roads that would aid either in tourism or major trading industries, major economic zones. So we allocate a portion in order to help other departments also with their fulfill their infrastructure needs. This was a significant increase. We have a new program which is in DTI that is with the ultimate goal of helping encourage business and create more jobs. If you see here, the Department of Tourism, the TRIP, was increased. It was 12.3 in 2017. 2018, we increased it to 32 billion. The DTI, which is a new program, we've identified 12.3 billion pesos worth of projects that will help improve our trading industries that are located across the country. And of course, DOTR Convergence, we have allocated from 5.8 billion pesos pesos last year to 7.1. This is in support of our new airports and access roads to our seaports, yes, and different ports across the country. So this is done with the help of the Department of Transportation, who helps identify where these areas are. And our fifth infrastructure area is the what we call the livable, sustainable, and resilient communities. Being one of the most susceptible to natural calamities, we feel that it's necessary to invest heavily in infrastructures that would help mitigate the effects of major disturbances. So when we talk about the livable, sustainable, and resilient, we talk about flood mitigation structures. This includes along major rivers, water impounding projects, water supply, septage, improving drainage capacity, and of course in terms of earthquakes, earthquake resiliency, rehabilitating, retrofitting, and strengthening of existing bridges, providing safe access to vulnerable areas, building evacuation centers, and improving national roads vulnerable to flooding, landslide, and slope failure. So we had programmed 106.8 billion in 2017, and in 2018 we'll be programming 168.1 billion pesos. Our next slide gives you an idea of how the breakdown per region for the DPWH budget. The NCR, as you can see, the NCR is 7.57% or 38.9 billion. Southern Luzon has a allocation of 20.06, 103.1 billion. Visayas has an allocation of 16.93 or 87.1 billion. And Northern Luzon has an allocation of 21.58% or 111 billion. And Mindanao is the largest budget year of 174.1 billion or 33.86% of the budget. Now we want to give some highlights for our of the actual programs that are part of our DPWH budget, our flagship programs. And I'll begin with one of our master plans, which we call the Luzon Spine Expressway Network. Basically, it's a series collection of 18 major highways, and eventually, the ultimate goal of this network is to connect the northernmost part of Luzon to the southernmost. Right now, we have approximately 385 kilometers of high-speed expressway network in the country, way below other countries of a similar size. So we want to expand this. We want to aggressively expand this to 1,040 kilometers before the end of the term of the president. Now, what is the significance of this in terms of time? If you go from Bicol now, and if you want to go to La Union, it would take you about 18 to 20 hours, given the existing highway network. Once this is finished, the same alignment would take you between 8 to 9 hours. So the benefits of this, I think, will go down to all sectors, whether it's trade and industry, whether it's agriculture, and all. I think this is one of the major programs. If you see from the map, basically, we are working now on the Tipilex extension that will take you to San Fernando, and then it will connect you to the Tipilex. From the Tipilex, you go to the NLEX, and from NLEX, it will be connected to the SLEX via two connector roads, the Skyway and the NLEX SLEX connector, which are ongoing. After that, it will connect to the SLEX, and from SLEX, we'll connect to the Starto, and from Starto, this year we've already begun the acquisition of right-of-way for the TR4, so we're planning to start the civil works this year. The TR4 will take you to Lucena, and then after we hit Lucena, we'll be finished with the feasibility study for the next phase by second quarter of next year. It's what we call QBEX, which is approximately 160 kilometers long, and that will be the connection between Lucena and Bicol. So once that, and there's a lot of other roads that are part of this spine. With this spine, we also have east-west alignments, the SILEX, which we are inaugurating later this week. That's connecting Cabanatuan to Tarlac. And at the same time, you can see that there's a North Luzon East Expressway, which we're currently finishing the study for this. It's a parallel alignment to bring development to the eastern part of Luzon. We don't want to limit it only to the index. We want it to reach the eastern side. So you can see there the North Luzon East Expressway. And then you can see also there's the CALAX, which by this year we are targeting to acquire 50% of the right-of-way. And the CALAX will connect to the Tagaytay. There's currently a proposal from MPIC to connect that to the Tagaytay-Nasugbu Expressway. So the plans are in place. You can see it there. There's the Cavitex. Basically, the CALAX will connect the Cavitex to the SLEX. So you can see the interconnectivity between all these major projects. But the significance of this, the impact of this, is really the ultimate is the north to south. At the same time, we'll be working on the east to west alignments. So this is really unprecedented. I think it's one of the major flagship master plans that we target to implement during the administration of our president. The Metro Manila is another major project. Of course, 15% of our population lives in Metro Manila, almost. There's a need to decongest the traffic, and I mentioned earlier those two connector roads. That will be able to at least reduce the amount of traffic that goes through Metro Manila by 100,000 cars per day. But it's still not enough to decongest. So we need to create other programs that would allow us to decongest Manila. And one of these is the Metro Manila Logistics Improvement. We have 26 bridges across Pasig River. And all these 26 bridges are very congested. That's why you have Guadalupe, C5. A lot of traffic is really focused on those bridges. So there's a need, based on our study, there's a real need to increase. So we came up with this master plan, of which the feasibility study was completed. All of the feasibility studies were completed because we started this late last year in preparation for the implementation this year. So you can see there's a list of the bridges there. The first one that we bid out was the Santa Monica-Lawton Bridge. That was the bridge connecting BGC to Ortigas Center. That was a 1.4 billion peso project that was already awarded, groundbroken, and will be implemented. The civil works will start in October next month. So, and the two more bridges that will start this year will be the two bridges that were given to us via a grant from China. That is the Estrella Pantaleon Bridge and the Binondo Intramuros Bridge. These two bridges, the Estrella Pantaleon is in Makati, it's the existing bridge there is 2 lanes with no pedestrian. We'll dismantle the bridge and create a new bridge that will be 4 lanes with pedestrian walkways. So that's marami kasi nagtatanong sa Estrella Pantaleon dahil may existing bridge na sa area. Tatanggalin na yung existing bridge at maglalagay po tayo ng bago. Ito po yung Estrella Pantaleon, which will be wider by 4 lanes and which will have a pedestrian component. The Binondo Intramuros Bridge, targeted to be groundbroken with the Chinese premier in November, also by grant. All the rest of the bridges are ready. We'll start implementing them as early as next year. Another major component of the infrastructure program, which will be also of course very expensive, but I don't think there's anything that's conceptually in terms of size of project. These are definitely some of the largest projects in the lineup of the Build program. So this is the Inter-Island Link program. There are 2 bridges that are slated to be started by next year that are in advanced stage of study. These are the Pangil Bay Bridge and the Panay Guimaras Negros Bridge. The Pangil Bay Bridge is approximately 3.5 kilometers long. The longest bridge to date is the San Juanico Bridge, which is 2 kilometers long. After the Pangil Bay Bridge, we have the Panay Guimaras Negros. This is 19.2 kilometers long. There is currently the Chinese consultant is there now to finalize their designs, so that we hope to be ready to start this project by next year. Again, these projects are billion-dollar projects. This Panay Guimaras Negros Bridge is projected anywhere between $2 to $3 billion to complete. The other areas that we are currently making a feasibility study for are the Camarines-Catanduanes Bridge, the Mindoro-Batangas Super Bridge, which is 15 kilometers, the Luzon-Samar Link Bridge, which is 25.4 kilometers, the Cebu-Bohol Link Bridge, which is 27.5 kilometers, the Cebu-Negros Link Bridge, which is 7 kilometers long, the Leyte-Surigao Link Bridge, which is 23 kilometers, and the Bohol-Leyte Link Bridge, which is 35 kilometers. With the help of the ADB, they're funding the feasibility studies for all these bridges, so we can see what kind of costs and the construction of these bridges would entail. But like I said earlier, there are already 2 projects here that are at an advanced stage of study and that we are targeting to start by next year. Again, these are the Panay Guimaras Negros and the Pangil Bay Bridge. So these are the projects that comprise our inter-island linkage project. Just to show that these programs are not limited only to Metro Manila, given the severe traffic in Metro Cebu, we spent this year conducting and revisiting this study for this Metro Cebu Expressway, which is a 73.8 kilometer arterial road started from Naga City and ends in Danao City with a 2-kilometer tunnel. What is the impact of this project? It's the travel time between Danao City and Naga City will be reduced from 3 hours to 1 hour and 25 minutes. Now, this is by far the largest infrastructure project in the history of Cebu. We're making this investment because we know that the traffic in Cebu has only been getting worse as the years go by, and if we do not have a solution now, we don't want to condemn the Cebuanos to that sort of traffic for the next few years. So this is our answer to their plight for traffic. It's the Metro Cebu. It's a very expensive project, 54.2 billion pesos. We've already included the first phase in the GAA for next year. We've already started funding it. Of course, the challenges are the right of way, but definitely we'll start moving on this project phase by phase, and it is our intention to complete this. And not just between the 2 points, but remember the traffic the through and through traffic from Cebu will be significantly relieved with this Metro Cebu Expressway. So it'll have a lot of exit points. You don't have to go through the main arterial road to travel through the city. So that's the Metro Cebu Expressway. Another major project, the Davao City Bypass. It's a 44.6 kilometer bypass road with a 2.28 kilometer tunnel. Again, like Cebu, Davao is plagued with a really horrible traffic. This project will reduce travel time from 1 hour and 44 minutes via the Pan-Philippine Highway to 49 minutes via the Davao Bypass Road. It has a project cost of 19.81 billion, and we're slated to complete it before the end of the term of the President in 2022. The Mindanao Logistics Infrastructure Network, this is a construction improvement of 2,567 kilometer road network in northern Mindanao, Davao, Sargen, and Caraga regions. This project cost is projected at 98.15 billion. It's a master plan. It started as 2015, and we are fast-tracking the funding so that it can be finished by 2019. The MLIN does not include the Zamboanga Peninsula, so we made a master plan also that included the Zamboanga Peninsula. We call it Improving Growth Corridors in the Mindanao Road Sector project. It involves the construction improvement of 276.5 kilometers in Zamboanga del Norte, Zamboanga del Sur, and Zamboanga Sibugay. These are various projects along the coast that will improve, encourage trade and development in the area. This is slated to be finished in 2020. We just received NEDA approval for this master plan, so it's ready for implementation, and the project cost is 21.19 billion. It should also be noted, these are just some highlights, and if you have any questions, I can give you the long list also. But it should be noted also that all these projects meet the minimum NEDA requirements. It's a big cost, but we were given a hurdle rate of 10% by the NEDA of economic internal rate of return. All these projects fulfill that need. So in terms of spending, we believe that these have gone through the proper vetting process. It's a good use of our taxpayers' money. It provides us a good return and a long-term return for our taxpayers and people who are funding this. So, and of course, the effects of this redound to other sectors, especially in terms of labor. Millions of jobs will be created. The losses, when you talk about the economic losses from traffic, from natural calamities, these will be reduced significantly. So there's a lot of externalities to this program for infrastructure. And here, this next slide is basically what I mentioned earlier, the convergence programs. That was just what I mentioned earlier. These are the traffic decongestion. This is the convergence program, so these are the various departments related to them. We have, of course, the Tourism, Department of Transportation, Department of Trade and Industry, Department of Agriculture, and Department of Education. So they provide us, they identify the projects for us, and we are the ones who implement it, being the engineering arm of the government. Yes?
Yes, Mark, Madam Chair, can I just interject? Yeah, on the, sorry, I did realize we passed already the inter-island linkage projects. Yung One Visayas Bridge program ninyo, the one that you're going to link Region 7 with Region 6, together with Negros, Panay, and Cebu, including Bohol. Who's funding this? That's a dream of ours, me being that we're from the south, from Negros, my paternal side. That's been a dream of the Negrosano to be connected with the Iloilo through Guimaras. At the same time, hopefully Cebu through the Tanyon Straits, I think, if not mistaken, that's the area of Dumaguete and Santander. Yeah, so is that just a proposal, or we're really actually going to start building this?
Okay. At this point, the ones that I think are the ones that are in advanced stage of not yet study implementation, but are almost ready for implementation, are the Panay Guimaras Negros Link Bridge and the Pangil Bay Bridge. The proper studies have been done, so basically by next year, in fact, the feasibility study for this Panay Guimaras Negros, the team is there now. It was funded by a grant from China. So they will be funding given the engineering complexity of all these bridges, it is necessary for us to get foreign aid, foreign expertise. That's why we've been traveling around, especially, and I think in the world, and maybe not everyone, but I feel that China, and we've seen that China is one of the most ambitious. Yes, you're aware of the Macau-Zhuhai Hong Kong Bridge. In terms of experience of inter-island link bridges, I think China is one of the most advanced in that respect. And we visited the bridge, we've seen it. It's very, the engineering that is that goes into something like that is quite spectacular. So in the Panay Guimaras Negros Bridge, the Chinese team is there now. They are funding the feasibility study, and we are looking by next year to have to be able to award the project. Similarly with the Pangil Bay Bridge, this is a Korean-funded project that it's design and build, and that by next year it will also be awarded as a design and build contract with them. So the other bridges, the Cebu Negros Link Bridge, we have been able to get a loan from ADB, and they will be the ones funding the feasibility studies, which should take approximately anywhere between 6 months to a year, but I think closer to 6 months than a year. So once these are done, which we'll start by this year, and and we're targeting by the second half of next year to have all the feasibility studies. It is at that point that we can decide which ones are feasible, which ones give us a higher economic rate of return, and which ones we should prioritize. Just from the very cursory study of these bridges, the Cebu Negros Link, there are some challenges. It's very deep, more than 200 meters deep. So even though it's a short distance, in fact, the Cebu Bohol is more feasible, even though it's long, because there are a lot of islands and the water is shallow. So we're looking at that, and of course, we're really hoping that the technology will be available to complete the Luzon-Samar and the latest Surigao, because that will actually connect Luzon to Mindanao. We're really hoping that the feasibility study allows us to will show us that the technology is available to do these bridges. But I can't say with absolute certainty at this point that it will be feasible to finish this by the end of the term of the president. But what I can say is these two we can conceivably finish these by the term of our president. But what I can commit is that by second quarter next year, the studies, the complete studies on all these will be finished, so we can decide with certainty which bridges here we can implement during the term of our president.
We recognize Senator Risa Ontiveros.
And finally, on the Cebu traffic situation, I was with the DOTR hearing the other day. I was at the DOTR hearing the other day, and they were looking at the proposals of making a hybrid system between the bus rapid transit system, BRT, and an MRT system. I think that's a good idea, and I'm glad that the Mayor Mena is also open now to the idea of having an MRT, because really the BRTs, you're squeezing in a very large bus in a very small road networks, very shallow road network. No? It's only, most of the areas there are only 4 lanes, 2 lanes on each side, so napakahirap. But I saw in your presentation you'll be having some expressways,
Yes.
which is a great idea. Could you expound more on this? Sec, would this be built within the term of the president? Or?
All these expressways that were mentioned in the Luzon Spy Network, all of them we are targeting to finish by the end of the term of the president. Some of them will be finished by the halfway point of the term of our president. The ones that will be finished by the halfway, by around 2020-21, will be the NLEX SX connector. Just to give you an update,
I'm just targeting now on the Cebu.
I'm sorry.
Not north side. Okay, na po tayo. Yung Cebu Expressway system, because I was in Cebu last week, and we all know that the traffic there is just as bad as Manila now.
Our RD is already identified. We've already conducted a parcellary survey, and that's the first step to acquiring the right-of-way. We just don't want to, there's no final, we've already committed to start it next year, and we've allocated $500 million to start that next year, just to move it along. But once the momentum's there, we will go full force once we've acquired the right of way. Anyway, the right of way fund is it's identified in the budget. So next year mostly will be right of way acquisition with civil works. But we will start it next year, and we'll be finalizing the alignment this year. So by next year will be full implementation.
Thank you, Honor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We recognize Senator J.V. Ejercito. Thank you, Mix.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Secretary Mark, just like to ask, in the proposed 2018 budget, the infrastructure outlay of government amounts to about 1.097 trillion total. So, being the primary engineering arm and construction arm of the government, how much of that 1.097 billion will be implemented by DPWH?
Well, our budget is 600. Next year, 605 billion in capital outlays. So the capital outlay, 605 billion capital outlay. So that will be our portion of the infrastructure program.
So you will still get the bulk of the capital?
Yes, about mostly.
I thought it will be now shifted to
siguro depende sa timing nila, like depende rin kung kailan magsisimula yung subway. So I suppose it might shift maybe in a year or two.
By 2019.
It might siguro mas increase na pag full force na yung construction nila sa subway at sa north and south.
Given the fact that you said that absorptive capacity is only 79% and you're targeting 90% hopefully by 2018, what will be your plans to speed up implementation? Strategy.
A lot of the plans before, the trouble began, I suppose, the planning process before, when we analyzed what were the constraints in terms of absorptive capacity. It was we saw that with planning, the accountability of the regional directors also. So they sometimes you would identify a project with no regard for right-of-way issues, and they would not be accountable for that. So now we've made sure that in the planning process, ngayon pa lang, ang ini-identify nila yung mga projects na malinaw na yung right-of-way. We do not allow projects, and if there's a project that's not implemented na walang right-of-way, they'll be held accountable for that. I mean, from our standpoint, we've already, in the planning process, we're very strict about that we will only allow projects, yes, right, and we also, in terms of implementation, we're applicable. We implement 24/7 implementation. We also change some of our standards in terms, like for instance, in Metro Manila, we use one-day concrete instead of the past, which is 7-day. So there are measures that we have taken to speed up the process of construction. In terms of planning, we've also we've created the infrastructure monitoring and advisory group that is comprised of all the stakeholders from other departments. So there's a regular meeting for high impact projects so that they can talk about the various permits that are needed and the various concerns. At the same time, in terms of right-of-way, we now have an undersecretary for legal who heads our right-of-way, and we have task forces for all major big-ticket projects. Dati kasi wala pang task force system. It was only done on, just recently, and it's proven to be very effective. It's given accountability, and it pressures our right-of-way teams to perform on a high level. So many steps have been taken, even software. We have a PCMA system, which is already at an advanced stage of implementation, which will remove a lot of the discretion in the decision making. So we feel that with these steps, which by next year will be fully felt by next year, we're expecting a significant improvement in absorptive capacity.
Likewise, just last week, Metro Manila was again submerged because of the monsoon rains brought about by the low pressure areas. And I'd just like to ask, probably briefly, if you can let this committee know the status of the 72.9 billion flood control projects for this year, and likewise if there is already a comprehensive national flood control program, given the fact that climate change, and the forces of nature is already flexing its muscles, so we have to implement the flood control projects without delay.
Yes, Senator. That's why there is, in fact, we've allocated what we said earlier, 160 billion in various programs. And if you see our slide on livable, sustainable, and resilient communities, you'll see that in the 18 major flood basins, we already have master plans for 11 of those, and we have for the other 7 for updating. But it is our target to have a major master plan for every single major flood basin across the country. And those that are already there, we've already funded with certain projects such as Cagayan River Flood Control Project. Continuous is our Pasig River Revetment Project. That's part of the 250 billion Metro Manila Flood Master Plan. We funded these in all major flood-prone provinces from Pampanga, Agno, all these, of course, are in various stages as well, but my point in saying this is there is a master plan for all major river basins. This is one of the goals of the DPWH, so we're investing heavily in flood control mitigation. And we're also, aside from that, also spending we have a program for the retrofitting of all major bridges across the country. And our new standards for all our school buildings, and all our buildings in general, we make sure that they can withstand 250-kilometer winds, and also all of them are seismic rated. This is in preparation for what we hope will never come, but we must be prepared for. Can I maybe just to give you an idea of what these projects are specifically, the Pasig Marikina River Channel Improvement. This is done with JICA. The Metro Manila flood, this is continuously funded, so the project cost is 7.55 billion, and 95.8% of these projects are ongoing. We're almost finished with this, and then we'll continue that even further. The Mandaluyong Main Drainage Project, we can give you a list of all them, ranging from Cagayan to Cagayan de Oro, all these major. We can give you a list so you can give us suggestions, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Secretary Mark. I would like to ask Executive Director from the Road Board, the Executive Director Clabano. Last May 14, we had a hearing regarding the accident in Nueva Ecija. Road Board was there. And that during that time, this representation asked for an accomplishment report from your agency. But as of this time, we have not received any accomplishment report. And out of the 223 target projects in 2016, this is our research, only 68 were completed. It is a mere 30.49% of the target, whereas 32.29% or 72 projects were not even implemented. I'd just like to ask, what is the reason for the delay of these projects? Because out of the 223 in 2016, 68 lang kung na-implement nyo.
Good afternoon, Senator. The reports that we were supposed to give you was sent to the committee of Senator Pacquiao.
We will have to check because we were not furnished, because we were the ones who requested.
I'll find out from the office, Mr. Senator.
With regards to the target completion, in 2016, 223 target projects, but only 68 were completed, or a mere 30.49%. Just like to ask Executive Director, who determines the projects of the Road Board?
The program or the job order emanates from the district engineers, and they send it to us for us to send it to DPWH for evaluation. And then after that, when they send it back to us for funding, we will collate everything, and then.
So it comes from the district engineer of DPWH?
DPWH.
They will send it to you.
Send it to us.
Then you will send to the DPWH for final approval.
Yes.
And then send it back to you.
And back to us.
Okay.
And then then I bring it to the board, for the board to approve or disapprove the program.
Who determines which areas would you prioritize? Meron bang priority ito?
No, we don't prioritize any project.
Do you have technical people in your agency, or are you just dependent on DPWH to provide technical support for the projects?
Yes, we have engineers also to make an inspection of the jobs that are being undertaken, but most of it comes from the DPWH.
I posed this question because if you remember, Executive Director Clabano, during the hearing last May, it was brought up that I'm sure you are aware that there is a bill pending for the abolition of the Road Board, because it's just a duplication, because of a lot of issues, that it's a source of corruption. And I asked you, I can remember, what would make us, convince us not to abolish your agency? If you remember it right.
Yes, I remember.
So, would you want to answer that question right now? Because right now there is a strong clamor already for the support for the abolition of your agency. Would you want to answer that?
Actually, Mr. Senator, I have no problem with the plan of abolition of our Road Board. It's just that since we're still there, we're not yet closed. We're just doing our job. We just continue doing our job until it has been abolished. But we're trying our best to explain our side also, because there are so many questions that were brought up, and we were able to answer that. because only recently, about a month and a half ago, we caught some syndicates that has been operating in Congress, and one time that has been going on for quite some time already, and so we caught one, and so I reported it to the NBI for the investigation, and only recently this afternoon, just today, a congressman came to us and say that there was such a person who went to him and showed him the SARO and tried to negotiate. But we're not aware of this guy or these people. So we again asked the congressman to give us some documents for us to start the investigation. The first one that we got pictures. I have all the copies of their fake documents, and they've been using the name of Road Board. So that's why a lot of people now under the impression that...
So kaya negative ang impression because of
no?
those things. Yeah, but I also, during that time, Madam Chair, during that hearing of May 14, exactly, I asked you, because there are some people, because one of our job as legislators, if we go around the country, we get to talk to the local officials, governors, mayors, and we see for ourselves the conditions of the road conditions. Minsan yung mga national road, lalo na paggabi, passes to populated areas. That's why I was requesting for lighting for certain portions of the national road. And at that time, Madam Chair, I already brought it up upon your attention that your agency has been giving the runaround to my very own chief of staff, who went to see you and asked for LED lighting in behalf of, I think it was Kawain Isabela. And until now, there is no action few months after. I think I even medyo umitang ulo namin doon dahil nga hindi niya kami pinapansin. That was already my chief of staff who went to see you. That is not for us. We're not asking for anything. But I hope you understand that one of our jobs as legislators is we get to see the real situation on the ground as we go around the country. So ano na po ang status doon sa mga lighting? Ano na ng hubang projects ang ini-implement nyo? Is it just cat's eye? Baka mamaya hanggang driveway may cat's eye na. It's all cat's eye. Ngayon, yung LED lighting is very, very vital for safety, for road safety. Ano na po nangyari doon?
As it is now, lately we have not used any cat eyes as of now, and the lighting program, we had some problems before, and we were just trying to, from the previous administration, we're trying to solve those.
So you inherited the problems.
Yes. And
ano po, hindi nabayaran dati, supplier, kaya hindi kayo makapag-supply ngayon?
Yes.
So please,
we must speak. Yes. Some of the suppliers were not paid yet. So but of course, before that, there was, in the previous administration, there was a separate bidding. The post and the light itself are being bidded separately. So when it happened, nagkahiwalay pa ang bidding noon. So nagka-problema ho yun. Hindi magka, if the light is available, the post is not available. If the post was available, it's the light that was not available. So we had to correct that, being inherited, so we tried to correct that. And so
what's the status now, Executive Director? What projects are you implementing now? Because wala hong lighting na lumalabas. Wala rin cat's eye. So ano po ang ginagawa ngayon na road?
Tapos lang ho namin yung pending, and then after that, we will start doing the new ones now. But we don't do the job. We just do the documentation. But the job, the implementation, we don't do the implementation.
Madam Chair, if it's with the permission of my colleagues, anyway, it's the topic of the road board. It was I who stood up this afternoon to make sure that you attend today's hearing, even though you are not part of the national budget, is because we feel that part of the development team of the President, the road board is still there, unless abolished in the near future, that you should attend and present. Now, ang problema sa amin, you know, I've been a member of Congress for 3 terms, and in these 3 terms, I've seen how the road board has been abused, not by you, but the previous administrations, where the road board has been abused, misused, and used as a tool for political influence. And you know, paggalit nga yung, I remember that time, paggalit yung congressman, okay lang, tawagan yung road board, kausapin, para maayos yung congressman. That was the practice. And we all know what does that mean, you know, that whatever transaction that goes on there, we would like to now correct. There's even for a fact, I know for a fact, that one of the officers of the road board had bought a beautiful mansion in Boracay. I know this because the billionaire who owned that is a friend of my father's, and he's told me, and also a friend of my good colleague here, Senator JV, and we even, beautiful house with a beautiful girlfriend. Kasama yata package deal. Tapos, hundreds of millions worth yung binili niya. Ilang taon lang sa dun sa road board. Kaya sabi ko, hindi naman pwede ito. Kasi, first of all, we're scraping now for funds. We're now in the middle of the train, you know, the tax reform agenda of the President and the administration. And yet, we feel that there is 12 billion a year coming from the MVUC that could be utilized for this build program, or the health. It could be for health. It could be for other earmarked for other important projects. Kasi yung nakikita nga namin, that's why we're asking you, how relevant is your agency? Because yesterday, kaninang umaga, kasama ko si Senator Ping, I asked the same question to SPDA. I asked the same question to NCMF. I asked the same question to MINDA. And OPA. How relevant are you as an agency in helping this country move forward? That is why maraming natamaan doon sa 1,000 peso budget, because some of our colleagues in the House feel that they're not relevant. They're not helping in the nation building. So, what can you say about that, Executive Director? You have to defend your organization, because really there's a strong clamor. I'd say 99% of our colleagues in the Senate want to pass the abolition as soon as possible. So, this is your time, Executive Director, to explain why you need to be there. What job do you provide that the DPWH cannot provide?
First of all, I'd like to answer the first question, with regards to that officer that you mentioned about, because it came out in the news also that there was this officer of road board that has a house, but it's not in Boracay, but it's in somewhere in Quezon City. It's overlooking house. But I think this has they were referring it to the previous officer, which they thought that it was under this new administration.
For the record, the officer that I was talking about was not you. It was in the previous administrations. But I'm just saying that's how bad the corruption is.
Yes.
Because they have enough money to buy homes worth several hundreds of millions. Hindi lang 100 million, several hundreds of millions. So, confirmed by the owner himself sa amin. So, yun lang. Is it relevant? Do we still need the road board, Your Honor?
Well, actually, we in the road board, the congressmen, especially the congressmen, because most of them comes from the district, the program of work comes from the district. Some people thought that we have the discretion as to who and how much to give, when we don't have that discretion. Number two, in the requirement, especially these urgent concerns of the congressmen who were
Hindi,
asking.
sorry to cut you. Sino ang may discretion about projects?
It is the board.
areas?
It's
the board.
It's the board of directors. So,
Let me just clarify, so that everyone being the chairman, so that what happens, so what happens is they submit a list that is vetted by the various, by operations, just to, no, our operations, they give us a list just to make sure that there's no double entries, there's no repetition of existing DPWH projects. If the list is okay, then we'll have a board meeting, which every few months we'll have a board meeting, including the DBM, myself, DOTR, DOF, as members of the private sector, and of course the road board. And it is in that meeting that the submitted, there's an agenda, and the lists are submitted to us, and then we look at the funding, and that's where it's approved by the board. We do not involve ourselves in the day-to-day operations of the road board itself. We're there for the so I guess there's a certain level of course, we don't have time to go create our own lists and do all these things, so the board itself, where we approve the list that is submitted, and that is agenda in the road board meeting.
Like, Mark, sino yung members ng board then? Para to be clarified. So it's you as chairperson?
Me, the DOF, the DOTR.
These are the secretaries?
Yes. Or if they have a representative.
Usually, in which case would they send representatives?
We don't have meetings that often, so it really, in many cases, they send representatives. But in the last road board meeting, they were there. The secretaries themselves.
I raise this because I know Secretary Jokno is up for the abolition. Secretary Dominguez was also for the abolition. So maybe this administration medyo matamlay yung board meeting yun because they really feel that maybe they want to just remove this altogether from the priority list. But on the previous administrations, time of GMA, time of President Noynoy, was it a very active agency? Who were the members of the road board then? Also the secretary?
The same.
Or designates? I could see people in the back saying yes. Were it designates or the secretaries themselves?
Parang I may say, I can interject. From my experience sa board before, parang may say yung head, yung executive, kung sino man yung head na in-appoint ng road board, parang hindi naman nakikialam yung mga department. Parang sa kanila, it's just pag walang conflict sa kanila, go. Pero pag hihingi ka dun sa head ng road board, doon ka humihingi. Pag sinabi niyang okay yun. Diba? Hindi nakikialam yung mga ibang.
Sabi, okay na, wala pa rin.
Hindi kayo. Kasi from our previous experience, pag pumayag yung head ng road board, okay na yun.
Probably you can look into the problem of yung sa supplies, because I think the lighting will have a very strong impact, no? Especially in the highways. It's very malaki. Hindi lang sa peace and order, safety. I hope that we can do something about that, so we can, yes.
Sir Jack, alam mo yung lighting sa highway, palaging problema niya, sino magbabayad ng electricity? That's the problem.
Actually, that's
the problem of LG. I solved that problem by putting up solar lampposts. Kasi wala nang electricity problem doon. And sa akin, pareho din ang cost ng solar lampposts at saka yung nilalagyan ng kuryente. Ang problema pa nung nilalagyan ng kuryente, ninanakaw yung kuryente. So, baka better na lang mag-solar lamppost tayo. Walang problema kung sino magbabayad na electricity, hindi pa nawawala yung kuryente because that's our experience. Minsan 3 beses nawawala yung kuryente. Ninanakaw nung sinesell ng mura sa and that's our experience. I had a problem na 3 times pinaltan yung electrical lines kasi ninakaw ng mga tao.
have no further questions, Madam Chair, on the issue of the road board. So, what is the status, just one last question maybe. What's the status of your fund now? Because I overheard earlier that DBM has stopped the release or the... What was the hearing earlier? I think DBM...
Just to update the committee, the last meeting in the road board, which we can give you minutes, I'm sure we can give minutes, we can provide you with minutes. There was a certain, the DBM was not inclined to, they recommended and we seconded that not to release, there was only certain funds that we recommended that were necessary, but a majority of the funds were not, it was decided that we wouldn't release until there's a decision on whether or not we will abolish the road board. So Secretary Jokta moved to release, not to release the funds, and the board agreed.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Madam Chair.
There's 8 billion allocated for DOTR, which they've not accessed since the previous DOTR. So it's really a waste. And it's for anti-pollution device. Sayang, the air quality in Metro Manila is so bad. The air quality monitoring systems of the DNR, EMB, out of 48, only 30 were working when we were conducting our hearing. And then there's 8 billion in the road board funds for the OTR, but it's not being used. Anyway, so let's not focus on the road board. Let's proceed. Senator Lacson, you have the floor.
Thank
so
you.
Senator Riggs and Senator JV, you're done. Then Senator Lacson, then Senator Risa on
I'd like to put on record we fully support the DPWH budget, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Villar, are you asking questions? No. Okay.
For purposes of this committee hearing, I'll be raising some parochial concerns muna, no? The major concerns, yung major issues, baka sa plenary na because I'll just wait to lay my hands on the General Appropriations Bill, the House version. These are parochial issues which are symptomatic of the pressure, the undue influence that your people on the ground are experiencing, no? From politicians, from congresspeople. But ito mga pressure nito could very well have a negative impact on the project cost, no? And even the project implementation itself. No? A case in point, Madam Chair, is the implementation of an ongoing project, yung raising, strengthening of boulder dikes with slope protection using bioengineering technology. It can be found on page 912 of the 2017 GAA. No? Kindly check. Raising of boulder dike including slope protection works phase 4, phase 5, phase 6. Ano? Natapos na yung phases 1 to 3. Ito yung sa Dampalit. No? Andito ba si Director Patrick Gatan? Ah, okay. So, this was stopped, no? Yung implementation actually suspended para i-change yung design. No? And this was after a verbal request from a legislator, si Congressman Sandoval of Malabon. Ang masama rito kasi mayroon ng letter. Ang babago yung design is instead of using bioengineering, yung bio-coco yata ito, coconut bioengineering technology, papalitin ito ng steel sheet piles. No? Ang presyo na doble. Mahal kasi. Mahal. And then, ang masama rito, at ito, memorandum mismo ni Director Gatan ito sa Secretary, sinasabi, bioengineering technology is advantageous. Not only because it is cost-effective, but also being eco-friendly and reusable. As to the steel sheet piles, ito I'm not blaming DPWH. Sabi ko nga, ito yung undue influence and pressure being exerted on your people. And this is a case in point. No? Yung, ayokong sisihin DPWH, katabi ko yung nanay eh. Joke only, joke.
That's the point.
As to the steel sheet piles, the memorandum states that its lifespan is shorter, no? Non-biodegradable, not eco-friendly, corrosive, can stand on heavy erosion but on limited time. So ang tanong ko, why is it that itong project na-stall, napalitan yung design by a mere request from a legislator? So magdodoble ang cost, limited time yung paggamit, ongoing na yung project, bakit biglang nahinto? Wala namang written request from the legislator, it's just a verbal request. So I would just like to find out.
Actually, Senator, thank you. I'm somewhat familiar with that issue. That was the original plan was for, correct, sir, Boulder Dike, and then we had a request from to look at the possibility of changing that into sheet piling so that it can be used as gusto nyo sana gawing road. Yun ang request to make a road. So it was studied, but unfortunately we looked at it but briefly, and it was not deemed as cost efficient or feasible. So by next, tuloy pa rin yung bidding. To answer your question, the bidding is it will be bid out next month with the original design.
You have 5 months to do that because 2016 budget ito eh. So 2017 there's 300 million. Hindi ito measly amount, ha?
Yes.
300 million pesos which should go to waste or magdo-double up yung project cost.
Well, the final decision, the final decision was that we'd retain the original design and it will be bid out next month.
Next month? That's in Malabon.
Malabon.
That's
Thank you very much, Senator Villar.
That's where I'm from. No, but can any legislator actually intervene even in the engineering? And
no, I think that
will be changed.
Well, it's happened before that district congressmen have their own suggestions, and of course we do respect to our legislators. Of course we do listen to their suggestions, and if some of them are meritorious, we consider it. If not, then we politely say that it's not feasible and we give our reasons. I mean, I suppose that that's to encourage. Of course, I agree. Siguro nangyari din yan dati na pinapressure talaga yung mga DPWH, but definitely we don't. We do our best not to encourage that, or we do not tolerate that sort of interference with our projects. And if we can listen, but if we see that it's not to the advantage of the government, then hindi namin tutuloy.
Tsaka masama pa sa sabit si Director Gatan dyan.
Yes, that's why.
I'm glad to hear that sa inyo mismo nang galing, Secretary, na this is without merit, di ba, yung request ng Congressman?
Well, we looked at it, and I think at this point, that for that stage of the project, it wasn't feasible to change it and to increase the cost. So, but that's not to say that building a road is something we'll never consider ever again. Right? It's something maybe we'll look at the possibility. If someone suggests to put a road, we can study that. But at this point, it was deemed not acceptable.
Thank you. Again, page 1141, 2017 gaaran ito. Under details of DPWH programs, projects, 6 million lang naman. Pero construction of multipurpose building, Dalyao Urban Homeowners Association. Ano ba ito? Public government property ba ito or private? 2017 Davao City. Dalyao, Davao City. Another one, ito pa ang mas page 1133, 2017 GAA again. 25 million pesos for the construction of multipurpose building, Performing Arts Center with equipment and accessories, Kapatagan, Lanao del Norte. Dito, violative pa ito ng yung tinatawag na singularity rule as enunciated by the Supreme Court in the PDAF case, yung kay Belhica versus Executive Secretary, no? Dahil ito yung tinatawag na line item. Dala-dalawa yung, kasi an accessories eh. Not to mention na mukhang questionable pa yung ownership ng property.
Can we just give us a minute to check
the nature? And there's another one. Ito nakakatawa na kasi beach resort. Nasaan na ba ito? Ito, Candon Beach Resort. 5 million pesos yung allocation. construction improvement of multipurpose building, Candon Beach Resort, Ilocos Sur. Pakitingnan nga ito.
All
Public
of that
resort.
must be public land, no?
No,
Whether it's the
obviously,
owners or the-
if it's private, we cannot do it. We cannot do it. So we'll just check. I don't know why it would say.
So probably the
Unless it's a road.
nomenclature in the GAA was wrong. Because is that GAA?
Hindi, sa GAA ito, wala naman Senep eh. Pagdating sa House, that's the reason why I'll raise some more issues during the plenary pag nahawak na natin yung GAB. Kasi the last time I inquired about some recurring items, nawala eh. Pagdating sa GAB, pinalitan. Naghanap na naman kami. So, yun. Hindi, Candon. Obvious naman kung sino. So, yun lang. Yun ang sabi ko nga, mga issues. Pero,
If it's public land, you officials we're not gonna. We cannot and we will not do it. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
thank you very much. Yun lang muna. In the meantime, Madam Chair, sa plenary na lang tayo magharap ulit.
I would suggest that you ask everything now. Because in the plenary...
The problem is, wala pa tayong kopya ng GAB. Pinapalitan nila sa House eh.
Oo, okay.
Also, there's also sometimes in the BICAM we're not the final. There's sometimes there are entries in the BICAM that sometimes we have no control over. So perhaps the wording was wrong when it was. But you have my assurance that we will not build on private land. It's simply illegal. Period.
If ever that's contained, and from what you read, it's contained in the GAA of 2017, mali ang nomenclature. Why will they put beach resort? Why will they put homeowners association? It's probably, I would assume, a public beach. The homeowners association, I'm sure, is a public land. So it's a multi-purpose in an open space in a public land by the homeowners area. It's probably just wrong nomenclature. But I am certain.
I quoted the exact words. Kaya nga may page number dito eh. Yeah.
Even ng GAA. Okay. You're done? Ay, Risa. Ikaw.
Thank you, Chair. Magandang gabi, Sec Mark. Madam Chair, I believe that next year's budget process can be different from all previous infra-budget processes, and that this shift can be done with the support from Sec Mark, also in your capacity as Chair of the NEDA Infracom. I was thinking that these can be based on an elaboration of the NEDA Public Investment Plan via technical assistance to the NEDA Infracom and its member agencies in a manner consistent with the very novel and I think very welcome spatial and economic agglomeration strategy of the Philippine Development Plan. Would the good Secretary welcome this approach?
Yes, we would very much, and I think that that's why we'd like to work together to make sure that these changes that would help in the implementation will be properly implemented.
Thank you very much. Following on that, and this is something, Madam Chair, that I started to discuss in general, and then with the Budget Secretary Jokno last year, and then this year also with Housing Chair Sen JV for housing programs. And I thank the good Secretary for welcoming this approach. Following on that, tingin ko po pwedeng may multi-year obligation authorities if and when DBM would approve these. But MAYOAS supporting even sub-regional MAYOAS. And in that way, through the leadership of the DPWH Secretary, also as kayo bilang chair ng NEDA Infracom, only those programs and projects that are in the regional, district, provincial priority infra plans will be entertained. So, I mean, tingin nyo, is this a more
I completely agree with that. That anything that goes to the anything that goes to the regional council should be given priority, and that's why we that's one of the ways in which we reduce the politicizing, so it goes through the proper vetting process. At the same time, it's MAYOA, like you said. I think it's a tool that we use even now, and it's one of our major tools so that we can improve our absorptive capacity. We can build a whole project it would reflect only what we can complete in that year. So we're utilizing that now for our, especially our big ticket projects, the use of MAYOAs, the multi-year obligation authority, so that we can properly, otherwise it would be a waste of government resources to put in the budget when you know you bid out the whole project, but you know you can only implement a certain portion of it that year. So yes, ma'am, we are in complete agreement that the MAYOA is a very effective tool. And with regard to the regional council, it is also something that we encourage. We do want our projects to go through a vigorous process.
Thank you, Segmark, also for mentioning the aspect of absorptive capacity. It was, I know it was already asked earlier, so I won't ask my question about it anymore. But also for pointing out na yung paggamit din ng MAYOA is also a way to further increase the department's absorptive capacity. So thank you for that. My last point about the use of the NEDA public investment plan and then an instrument like MAYOAs is that I see it's also, and the use of the spatial and economic agglomeration approach, it's also a way to define last-mile public investments. So projecting forward till 2022 and then backward from there, the next 5 years, kung paano talaga makakompleto yung mga last-mile public investments under the stewardship of your department. Just moving on to a few more questions, Madam Chair, in no particular order. For me, one of the most important issues is the displacement of families or communities and the environmental impact of infrastructure projects. How are these concerns addressed or being addressed in the new infrastructure project, especially now that the 2018 proposed allocations for housing agencies were cut and the DILG support for LGU capacity building to be effective partners in infrastructure projects has also been cut? Related to this, Segmark, I note that in the proposed budget, there's a 56.4 billion allotted for the payment of right-of-way of 1,767 claimants. Pero syempre, ito lamang yung mga claimants, yung mga may-ari, and then babayaran dapat ng right-of-way. But what about other families and communities who may be displaced because of infra projects?
Well, the right-of-way, individually for each project, for major projects, it's already inputted into the project cost. At the same time, the right-of-way fund is also a way that we supplement to augment our right-of-way needs for most infrastructure projects. Our coordination with the NHA, we're able, it's through these right-of-way funds, which is why, if you can see, it's relatively large, but we can transfer funds to the NHA, and they'll be the ones to build the housing for us, for the ISF. So we've been doing this actually, thousands. We've been able to, for our projects such as the Harbor, which Undersecretary Ligo, she's in for right-of-way. She has some specialization there, so she can inform.
Madam Chair, I'd like to address that question. So for the new approach of the DPWH is to also really identify all of the ISFs so that we can address their needs. For 2018, we've identified 13,302 informal settler families which are affected by 8 specific projects. And those are all within, so far, within Luzon. But we've also identified the costs based on our coordination with NHA. So in order to relocate them, for those 13,000 families, we have 5.1 billion pesos. So this is something that we continue to coordinate with NHA in order to make sure that when we relocate them, they have the appropriate housing.
What's the 5 billion for?
5 billion. That's
billion. 5 billion.
Yes, that's for the 13,302 informal settler families.
So how much per family? Can I intervene?
So it's broken down into the project and the number of ISFs. So for instance, you have C5 Northern Link Project Segment 10. We have 2 areas there, Caloocan, which is about 2,183 families, and Valenzuela, which has 778 informal settler families. So to correspond with that, the budget is for Caloocan, 851 million pesos, 851, 370 million pesos, and Valenzuela, for the 778 families, 303,420,000. That's just an example, but that's how detailed we are in terms of the budget, the number of ISFs affected, and how much is needed to relocate them. And the cost comes from also NHA for the housing.
How do you break down that amount? Like how much do you give? Kasi I have experience with that before with Secretary Singson. They give 30,000 per family in terms of financial assistance, and then the house that they will transfer to. So how much do you give per family now for financial assistance?
So Madam Chair, the amount I gave just now, that's based on the unit cost given by the NHA for the housing. So
how much?
That would be, let's see, 85, 370.
But to housing, they give also financial assistance.
That would be, yes, 390,000 cost per unit, and that's 40 square meters.
And how much do you give in terms of financial assistance?
So financial assistance is not part of this quote.
So who will give the financial assistance?
That's coming from DPWH as well, but in terms of our...
Where will it come from?
So right now, that's part of the lump sum that we have when we allocate the project costs for right-of-way. But this is specific, so we have several items in our right-of-way, and so we give 17 to 18,000 pesos, but the financial 17 to 18,000.
17. Okay.
To 18,000 pesos.
That's the amount they give, actual financial assistance, and then they have 12,000 to answer for yung sasakyan, and then of course all the basta total per family is 30,000. That's how that's 30,000 each family. That's how they do it during the time of Babe Singson, because I experienced that. And the house, I didn't know that you pay for the house. I thought it's NHA who's paying for the house.
Is it the 5 billion, is it the payment for the houses that will be built for the ISFs that you will relocate and you will build it, or will you transmit the funds to NHA and they build it?
It's because it's we prefer to transfer to the NHA. It's not within our core competency to build the houses. So we with our experience, we simply transfer the funds to them, and they give us through MOA, and they give us the houses.
Sure. So clarification: the 5 billion is for ISFs, but that fund is transferred to NHA, which will build the 40 square meter houses. Correct? So this 5 billion is actually implemented by National Housing. And the record of NHA, and you were there in the hearing, they are still here, they only have occupied homes of 47% in the 6 years that they allocated billions of pesos. Meaning, if you will give them 5 billion pesos for the ISFs, if they are to be true to their habit of 1, no consultation, number 2, walang kuryente, pangatlo, walang tubig. Tayong dalawa nun, galit na galit tayo ng hearing last week.
I think,
5 billion.
Senator Lauren, the problem there is those what you call, yun mga ISF, they like the houses because they don't have houses, so they like, it's the government, yun ang ayaw ng houses, but the ISF, kasi I have my own experience in Las Piñas, they like the houses because it's better than what they have. If you see their houses in the depressed area, that's terrible.
As long as there are facilities, dapat may
yun lang facilities ang problem.
Ang problema,
the water and the electricity.
It's not going to be spent by DPWH. Do you have a mechanism where you monitor them? There's an oversight function because it's funds lodged with you. And it's a problem that you are supposedly solving through the ISF families being taken away from areas where you have projects. So if MHA will build the homes and spend the 5 billion, but spend it the way they've spent for the AFP-PNP homes, for which only 13% is actually used. If they do it business as usual and do it the same way they did for Sendong, Pablo, and Yolanda housing, suma total nga 53% unused, sayang yung 5 billion nyo. Unless if it's ISFs and you assure us that you will make sure may kuryente, may tubig, na konsulta, may kabuhayan, malapit sa kanilang kinalalagyan. Alam mo naman, ayaw nilang malayo sa kanilang kinalalagyan. Yun. Otherwise, masasayang ang 5 billion nyo.
That's correct. And that's why our new system of task forces helps us also to monitor what is the result of the relocation of the ISF, the informal settlers, in every single project. So that's something that's a concern with us. At the same time, of course, the right-of-way budget's not purely for housing. Of course, it's acquisition of properties as well for these major projects. So it can be used. It gives us a certain level of flexibility also for those projects. We have a long backlog of right-of-way acquisitions as well that we have to service.
Is this 5B right-of-way acquisition? Iba pa to sa right-of-way, no?
The whole right-of-way is 49 billion. Our
And
proposed
this 5
project,
billion is not part of the 49.
it's part of it. But in terms of the allowance, we have a proposed lump sum of 5 billion pesos. And that's because when we pay the allowance for practical purposes, it's also based on the people present. So it's easy to identify how many houses to build, but at the time of the giving of the allowance, there can be change in circumstances. So at least for NHA, wala naman po nasasayang na bahay, because if it's built, then for other projects, pagka merong vacancy, pwede rin mag-relocate ng, magagamit pa rin yung housing nila.
Of the 49 billion that you mentioned, how much of that will go to NHA for the relocation of ISFs?
So 5 billion pesos. But more specifically, that's the...
Well, actually,
yeah.
there's an existing inventory of all the projects. It really depends on how the timing of how the tagging of all these projects. So that's why it's not specifically we have a list. We've given a list of projects. How it's going to be allocated between the projects is not yet clear until we're actually doing the we're processing all these right-of-way acquisitions.
But to clarify, Madam Chair, the 5 billion, it's a lump sum. And then another 5 billion, 114 million, 850,000, that's for the NHA, for ISFs that we've identified. And they're identified with 10 specific projects. So that's very detailed.
Not under the 49 billion.
It's under the 49 billion as well. So there's 5 billion 114 million ISF's relocation that will be downloaded to NHA, and a lump sum of 5 billion as well for contingency, including the increase in market value pursuant to RA 10752. That's contingency, because there are cases that are pending appeal that we expect judgment to be finalized soon. But the other right-of-way funds, those are based on outstanding claims that have final judgments, and those that have been already bought by the government based on deeds of sale.
49, no? Your right-of-way is 56.4. In your
The 49 billion, it's outstanding claims alone. So that's outside of the, that's outside of the 5 billion for NHA.
There's a 56.4 billion for payment of right-of-way for your NEP of 2018. Is this the 49? I don't understand. Or is this different? What is the 49? What is the 56?
The 49 billion is based on the computation of the outstanding claims that exist, but based on the NEP, they only put in 46 billion pesos. So if we wanted to really have all the funds that are sufficient to meet the computed outstanding claims as of date, we would need 49 billion 739
million
I
plus.
don't understand, why is the net 56.4 billion?
That's on top of the outstanding, yes.
That's the total.
Yes.
Ma'am, the 56 is the total right-of-way budget that includes lump sum of 38 billion for already completed projects with identified claimant where the legal services already validated the claims. You have 5 billion to support and augment ongoing and future projects if the project cost to acquire the right-of-way, you can augment it from this fund. And a 1 billion for utility relocation. The rest, ma'am, are already identified in terms of the specific projects where you can actually source even the ISF relocation, including the construction of housing that we can transfer to NHA. So overall, Madam Chair, the budget of right-of-way, inclusive of the identified and the lump sums, is 56.481 billion.
Thank you, clear.
Can I ask a question, Mr.? Yes. It has been a program of DPWH to remove the informal settlers in the riverbanks, diba? Is that a continuing program? Do you have a budget for that?
Yes, ma'am. That's part of our lump sum that includes also the relocation based on the mandamus issued to us by the Supreme Court to continuously relocate people living along the esteros.
Okay.
And these are ongoing.
So you have budget for
Yes,
that?
po.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I was glad to hear that DPWH will be coordinating with NHA on these relocations, lalo na sa kabila ng nabawasan nga yung pondo ng key shelter agencies para doon, also in the light of their reported underspending in the past year. And I'd be curious to find out as we continue with our budget debates, paano naman yung resource mobilization din ng mga LGUs na katulong din nyo sa
Just to add,
relocation.
ma'am,
Yes, you said.
of course, concern po namin to relocate ISF because it's our project that's going to be delayed just in case NHA will not be able to build the houses on time. So what we do is request NHA to, once we transfer, because it will also take time for them to build the houses, they will also go around the procurement and everything. Hindi po makakahintay yung project namin. Wala naman pong demolition kung walang relocation. So ang hinihingi po namin sa NHA is for them to make use of the existing unoccupied houses agad dun sa ISF na kung saan po malapit yung mga ISF, yung mga unoccupied, at palitan na lang nila nung amount na binigay po namin sa kanila because we cannot wait also for them to bid, award, and finish the houses in 1 year. Di kami naman po yung hindi makakatapos ng project namin.
Senator Risa, I think they have a supply of houses, this NHA, and you can access that kasi there are many unoccupied houses, so they can access that. And I think they have two places. For Northern Metro Manila, they go to Bulacan, and for Southern Metro Manila, like us, we go to Cavite. They have a supply there, and we make use of that, so it's okay.
Thank you for that. I suppose that's one good way na balansehin yung urgency ng projects, tapos yung welfare din ng mga ISF families na may titirhan, and then yung pag-maximize sa existing resources na meron ng NHA in terms of existing or built houses. Just one follow-up on this matter of displacement and environmental impact. Meron bang kahit quick status report from the department on the projects ongoing and to be implemented in 2018 that would, additionally, on what we've already discussed, projects that would require the transfer of families, included in the report, the resettlement, environmental damage mitigation efforts or plans being done, and also does the department have recommendations that would improve the process of ensuring that resettlements and environmental mitigation concerns relative to the bid projects will be sufficiently addressed? In particular, yung convergence efforts among agencies at saka yung creation of the task force. I think that's what the Secretary was mentioning earlier, task force with CSO participation.
we will provide the Honorable Chair and the committee with the status of the relocation for the big ticket projects, as well as the consultations that were done during the process before we actually construct and build. Because as I said, Madam Chair, we're not even allowed to start without properly relocating the ISF po. And we are coordinating with NHA. In fact, we just transferred another 1 billion for the for resettlement of ISF in segment 10 through AMOA, and we requested NHA to allow us the use of their unoccupied houses already, so we can immediately complete our segment 10 as committed by first quarter of next year.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to add the other measures that we've been discussing with NHA. So immediate measures to address the problems with ISF relocation is the formation of a special committee to immediately address the primary issues of resettlement, and actions with concerned agencies to ensure resettlers access to basic services and short-term employment, and setting up of permanent NHA field offices to facilitate regular dialogue between NHA, resettlers, and other concerned government agencies. For the medium and long-term measures, we've discussed policy frameworks with them, including the formulation of a national housing and resettlement policy framework, and reallocation of resettlement budgets to accommodate sending and receiving LGUs in case they need to be transferred outside of their LGUs, and a creation of the relevant department orders within the DPWH and NHA so that we can enable some specific rules and regulations for the policy implementation of these goals that we've set with NHA.
I just want to add, I have visited the relocation center of areas of NHA. They have schools there. They have a multipurpose center. And the NHA has created a department for livelihood. So they go there to teach livelihood to the residents. And the one they chose in Cavite is near the, what do you call that, where the factories are, the PESA zone. So there are plenty of jobs available there for the settlers. So I have been there, and I'm doing livelihood projects there, so they're okay. It's a very nice community in Cavite. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm especially glad to hear about the National Housing and Resettlement Policy Framework, and the Department will find strong support for that dito sa ating, Madam Chair, Committee on Housing and Urban Development with Chair JV and Senator Sherwin as well. How are the construction of barangay access roads, farm-to-market roads being prioritized to link the communities to the big infrastructure projects? Siguro bahagi ng pinag-usapan natin kaninang agglomeration approach. Those that are expected to have impact in terms of agricultural productivity and job generation. What percentage of the total potential FMRs are scheduled to be built next year, 2018?
To be, we're just being consistent with our mandate. Our first priority is always the national roads, simply because that's our mandate. But like I mentioned earlier, we have our convergence programs. The FMR farm-to-market roads are identified by the Department of Agriculture, and we are the ones who implement for them. The reason for this is because, of course, in terms of specialization, they would be in the best position to know which are the priorities in the national scale. Yes, they know the FMR network. At the same time, the same can be said for the DOT, Department of Tourism, and the DTI, our convergence programs with them. Similarly, they're the ones, and DOTR. So all the agencies that are within our convergence programs, we allow them to identify for us, and we implement on their behalf.
Yes,
in the budget of Department of Agriculture, there's a 6 billion pesos appropriated for FMR, which has a special provision that it shall be directly released to DPWH for the construction, rehab, and repair of FMRs in accordance to their approved network plan po.
Thank you, Yusek. You were reading my mind, because and the chairwoman will remember this and also Cynthia, when we were at the DA, budget hearing, that came up, yung magkano kailangan para matapos yung last 13,000 kilometers ba yun, last mile public investments in terms of farm to market roads. So I suppose you're confirming my next question na what percentage of potential FMRs will be covered until 2022. So target nyo ba in partnership with DA 100% na nang hindi pa na itatayo, na i-construct?
Have to ask DA on their targets up to 2022, so we can also strategize on the implementation annual.
At this point, they would be in the best position to answer. We implement for them, but the master plan, similar to the DOT, comes from their agency.
The DARs, kayo ba rin nag-i-implement ng farm to market road nila? The DAR, meron din sila.
Before we used to, but lately they have, it's also their discretion whether they want to download, so they haven't been downloading, there's no downloading from the DAR in recently.
Madam Chair, I actually have about 5 questions more, but I need to leave in 5 minutes. So, just one last question, and then siguro yung iba, isulat ko na lang kay Sec Mark, and then if there's any that I need to still raise in plenary, yun na lamang siguro. So just for my last question for this evening on reconstruction. So how is the department preparing or strengthening its response capability to reconstruction projects, post-disasters, and calamities? But let's zero in on how the agency is preparing specifically for the rehab of Marawi City.
Well, the Marawi Rehab, initially our first, being the vice chair of the Marawi Rehab, I was just there recently. One of the aspects of this Marawi is that was assigned to us is the evacuation centers. That's what we've ensured that the water, the facilities there have been upgraded. Latrines, we've given 49 latrines, 7 per, and we've provided water tanks and water trucks for all these. At the same time, we've also been given the job of the land development for the rehabilitation, the resettlement site in Sagunsongan, which is an 11-hectare resettlement site, and the task of the DPWH in this respect is to develop the land, which is the network, and upon which the NHA will build the Department of National Defense is actually the chair of this committee, so they're the ones coordinating also for this. But eventually the NHA will be putting up the houses. In fact, they already have a model. The DND has already come up with a model house for the Marawi Rehab transition. So we've been very active with this, and I think that the team, which is chaired by Secretary Lonzana, has endeavored to be very quick with regards to being responsive to the needs now. At the same time, the master plan of the rebuilding of Marawi is ongoing under Mindanao State University. We are in constant coordination with them, and once they finish the HUDC and the other stakeholders, so the plan will come from the MSU, and then upon which we will be able to give our comments. And but we've already laid the groundwork for the rehabilitation and eventual rebuilding of Marawi. So we're quite confident with the preparations that have already been made and that continue to be made.
Thank you, Madam. Okay, the chair wants to ask what's the total amount you're projecting for Marawi?
For public infrastructure, roads, bridges.
Well, I'm sure you've heard about the initial 20 billion that we're thinking, but the reality is until we go inside, which we haven't been able to boots on the ground. We've only gone as far as the resettlement center, which is about 5 kilometers away. In order for us to give a really accurate amount that would be needed, you really have to go inside, and we have to, in order to do that, well, obviously we have to get military clearance. In fact, the bullets have even reached 5 kilometers away, so even that resettlement centers, there are certain risks also, as far as for our personnel in the DPWH.
Madam Chair, my last 4 questions would have been, or I'd put them in writing at least, on risk mitigation and property insurance, and then just one point about COA audit findings. But I'd just like to thank the good Secretary for, I think, the great way that you've engaged our committee on our questions. Salamat po.
Thank you,
Madam
Senator.
Chair.
Thank you, Senator.
You can just submit your questions, and it will be emailed to you, or a soft or hard copy can be.
Thank you. And if there's any one that I still need to raise on the floor, that for the plenary
In fact, I'll do
discussions.
the
Thank
same.
you, Madam Chair.
I'll do the same because we haven't slept, and the staff have not slept. And that's good for you that we're all tired. Been working 12 to 15 hours and even on weekends, and I pity them as well. I haven't slept also. So you're lucky. What I will do, since I will defend your budget on the floor, I'll just email you my questions. And my questions will be, I'll just say it on record and I'll add. Your budget during the time of Secretary Singson for the regional evacuation centers. I know that there was difficulty in finding the land before, and the funds were supposed to be continuing appropriations for this year. So kindly give me, you have 3 months to spend it, whether you've spent it or not.
Your budget of the evacuation this year.
You have the previous year's budget
Yes,
during
po.
a time of Sec
And this
Singson.
year po, meron din.
And this year,
Apo.
regional evacuation
Apo.
centers. So just give me
Yes, ma'am.
the outline of that. And then every year I've asked for the past several years on the retrofitting of bridges. I saw it, you have 4 billion, but I did not see your budget for retrofitting of government infrastructure. I seemingly did not see that.
We allocated
Bridges
for
of
the
4 billion.
Opo, we actually focus on National Capital Region.
Ilista na lang nyo.
Opo,
Sa pagod na nga.
i-cite.
Sasabihin ko lang yung mga tanong ko. Sagutin na lang nyo kami. Oo. And then, prepare me ha. Not just because hindi kayo natanong masyado ngayon, pagod lahat. Thank you. Do me memo and all my cue cards. Prepare me, please. So, the evacuation centers, the retrofitting of bridges, and other government infrastructure. If you did not fund for next year the retrofitting of government infra, what will happen? So I'll be asked that. And the respect for heritage structure. Even during a time of SecBabe, well, maswerte si SecMark, hindi ko masyadong tinatext. I used to be bombarded by the heritage advocates, and I agree with them that before the DPWH in the regions, in the provinces move, there should be clearance with the local heritage societies and the local government. Maybe local government, sometimes they don't understand heritage. They think a bridge is a bridge. And sometimes, and you've seen it, Mark, you've traveled the world and you see how heritage bridges can actually be retained, and even over that would be the new contemporary bridge that can be built. Then I wanted to ask about Marawi and the plans for Marawi, but I received your answer that until you're not able to find out how much is really needed for that. I also wanted to ask about the climate change expenditures under the BESF, no? It's 276 billion. Which is distributed across departments, and DPWH has the biggest share of resiliency budget at 226 billion, but of the 276 billion. So I'll just give you my questions. I don't expect you to answer now. We're all very tired. I will also ask you the 4 major programs and projects prioritized under the under the 2018 budget, the missing links, the new roads, the diversion roads, flyovers. Actually, it's contained in your budget presentation, just to make sure that you prepare me for that. And the biggest question that I will be asked, please prepare me, actually 2, your implementation of the ARM infrastructure, which we discussed earlier, and second, your underspending or lack of absorptive capacity. And then I will be asked about MVUC as well. I don't mean to be personal to MVUC, it's just really an irritating thing. Not this administration alone, but even in the past years, since I've been sitting here since 1998, and I realize the law was passed in 2000. So it's about time that it be reviewed, and there are many controversies surrounding that fund. So that and more, I put it on record now. I hope someone from DPWH is taking notes of those questions, and I will ask you more questions, but please anticipate it because you know what I was asked last year. You know what I will be asked this year. Padaliin nun yung buhay ko, you know. Just
We'll be ready, ma'am. After last year, we have we're much more prepared. We have an idea now. Yes.
Yes,
We'll be much more prepared this year.
yes. So, hindi ko napapahirapan ang buhay nyo at ang buhay ko. Pagod na pagod tayong lahat. Kaya ihanda na lang nyo yung mga sagot sa katanungan ko at marami pang Q&A para lang maintindihan ko. And then, we will review your budget and make recommendations in the event there's a need to add here, add there, to recast, just like what the House is doing. But we can never act until we see the gap. We don't know. We might see a new different animal when we see the gap, right? And because your mother is waiting here beside me, how can you ask too much if your mother is beside me? No, right?
I'm just watching how they answer the question.
Oh, she's my seatmate forever. My BFF seatmate. Okay, we are done, my dear.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, Secretary Mark and the DPWH family. We therefore approve na, no? Bilis, ha? Approve. It's deemed submitted. Of course, but depending on how the gap comes in, then we will revise your budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yung ayusin natin yung mga cue cards. So, dapat yung mga, kung ano yung tanong, may sagot. Kasi yung last paper, it's more on information. Dapat yung, kung ano yung yung anong